3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com.
GrokTALK.
Welcome to GrokTALK. We have unexpected guests, but we'll get to that in a minute. I wanted to let you know that Kirk McNeil and Kevin Bloom will be joining us today to talk about a host of local issues. Guy Comtois on the phone waiting to give us a legislative update. We will be calling Doctor Gerard Gianoli around 10 o'clock. This is a gentleman who has a medical practice. He accepts absolutely no private or government insurance.
Concierge service.
Basically, yep. And then special election candidate Yvonne Dean-Bailey, who's running in Rockingham 32, will be with us at 10:30. Jane Cormier's just walked in the room because she's got a little business down the hall here. And so she's going to be in the neighborhood every week. Yay! So welcome to GrokTALK. And, of course, Kirk McNeil's already here.
And
so,
Mike.
And
Mike.
Can't
forget Mike.
Mike's on the phone. I gotta turn everybody on. Here we go. All right. So we got all these people. We got all these headsets. I don't know what this is going to do for the... You're phoning it in. Yeah. Stay. Okay, so hang on. I'm going to turn that off so you can adjust your microphone. But anyway, let's get right to it. Excuse me. Should have drank my coffee. Guy, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. How's it going?
Good. So let's talk about the Jaspercrats and
Oh, I like that.
that's Ed somebody.
Ed Nail?
No.
Ed Como?
Ed Mosca.
Ed Mosca.
Ed Mosca. So that's courtesy of Ed Mosca. Give him full
Jaspercrats.
credit, Jaspercrats. So what's up with the Jaspercrats in the house, huh?
Well, same old. You know, he's kind of like a mini-dictator. We were in. Well, it is. I mean, we're
Sugar-coated
sugar-coated
guy.
Not this past Wednesday, but the Wednesday before. I mean, if a bill goes on the consent calendar, in other words, you're in committee and you have a 17-1 or 18-0 vote on a bill, you can put it on the consent calendar, which means that all the committees throughout that week before put bills on the consent calendar. So you pass one vote, you pass a whole block of bills. So some bills were put on the consent calendar that folks wanted to debate. So it only takes one representative to go up and remove a bill from the consent calendar.
And you were that person, right?
No, I was not.
Oh, darn.
But a few of the folks in Murderers Row were. and at the end, so the day took longer than it was expected. You know, we had to lecture us that if people keep taking bills off the consent calendar, and none of these bills even came close to winning, to being overturned, then we're going to be spending some long days up here. You know what I mean? So here he is. He's got to sit there and lecture us, you know, on the reason why the day went so long. Well, you know, very seldom do you overturn a committee report on taken from the consent calendar, but you got to try. I mean, that's what we're there for. You got to bring it to light. And so now you're being lectured that you're going to have long days if that keeps happening. So, you know, who do you think you're talking to, buddy? I mean, you know, everybody out there ran for election from the people in their district. We don't need to be taking, you know, if we think there's a chance or if we think that bill was, you know, come out of committee the wrong way, then you have that right to take it off the consent and then debate it on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
That makes
so you
sense.
shouldn't be being scolded, more or less, for doing so.
Well, you know what, Guy? It's Jane. How are you?
Hi, Jane.
Listen, I have to say that right on topic of what you're saying, I hear through my people in the legislature that any life bill is also being in the background told to just let it go. He doesn't, you know, Jasper's not going to really put any weight of the party, our own platform, mind you, of life, right, behind any legislative bill that comes up for life. And it's really interesting if you look at the roll call of the 3 life votes that have come before the House since session started, you can look at the roll call vote, and it's really interesting to see how that vote comes out. Because I think Jasperites, is that the word?
Jaspercrats.
Jaspercrats. Man, that is such a fabulous term.
Yep,
I'm
Ed
going to
Mosca.
write that down.
Thank you, Ed Mosca.
Yes, I read that on his blog yesterday.
That's where I got. He tweeted something
Yeah.
in response to something I wrote, and then I went and followed his link, and I'm like, oh, I love this. This
that's
is awesome.
right. It's true. It's true. So, yeah, you're absolutely right about that. You know, he's the king of us all, and you know.
Oh yeah. You know, it's like HB 582, the constitutional carry, the House version, the one I sponsored. The word was last week that they were going to retain it. No, the Senate already passes it. Same exact bill. Senate passes it, and then we're going to retain it.
But that's because the House bill had all of the strong, good conservatives behind that bill, you see? Those are the people that Jasper's not going to assist in any way. Because if you look at that bill in the House, it's all you great conservatives that have stood up time after time and taken the heat and done the right thing when you vote. So you see, he's not going to assist that vote, even though the Senate, who I have to say, even though they passed the bill, there were some people that sponsored that bill that you really have to wonder if they believe what they signed on for. Bradley and Putin. But you know, so the one bill, right, that's put in the House for a constitutional carry that is by the people that have always stood by constitutional carry is going to be held up.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and he's on record in public saying he supports it. So, and I was trying to tell some of the gun owners that showed up, I said, this is the way it works up here. Believe me, the committee chairs, vice chairs serve at the pleasure of the Speaker. This committee chair would not be retaining a bill like this that brings in this much controversy without permission or the word from the Speaker.
Well, isn't the
way it is?
Yeah.
It's the way it is.
Guy, isn't it the word out there that if he thinks a bill is going to be vetoed by Maggie the Red Hassan, he's going to slow walk it or as slow as he can, and if it's going to be retained, it's obviously very slow. But basically, is he just now kowtowing to what Hassan wants? She doesn't want this bill?
Well, Skip, I really don't believe he has a hell of a lot of core beliefs. So I think that it's not because, she may veto it. I just don't think there's really, he's there for the ride. Look at me, I'm the Speaker.
Caucusing with the Democrats.
Yeah.
You're saying the last principal he had was in high school.
Whatever's going to promote me, that's where I'm at. You know what I mean? Where are we today,
Exactly.
He probably walks in the Speaker's office today and says, where are we today?
Or is this sort of kowtowing to Deputy Dog Shurtleff, who doesn't want anybody to have a gun unless you're receiving a government paycheck?
Yeah, well.
Bone to Deputy Dog.
Yeah.
He always starts off, too. When I first got there, the first time a gun bill come up and he got up, I said, this guy's probably going to be okay. Because he gets up saying that he's an NRA member, and he owns a Glock, and he owns a 7mm, and he owns this, and he owns that. And then he dashes the Second Amendment right down to the toilet. So, you're exactly right. There's nobody smart enough besides him and the ones around him that should own firearms.
I want to just offer something, because I was on the phone with some people nationally who I have to remain nameless with, but national politics, that are watching the Jasper debacle. No, I'm not kidding. They know with names what's going on in the state of New Hampshire within the party, within our New Hampshire State House, which I found incredibly interesting. That an out-of-state big organization knows every single thing, and in fact brought the subject up to me in detail.
Well, if these are conservative groups you're talking about, everybody that's a conservative that knows what's going on around them knows that they're trying to shove us out of the Republican Party.
Yes, indeed.
So it's no secret. They want to turn the GOP into a corporate like the Democrats have done with their party. And, very little say, and all the say at the top. And so, I would think they would be watching us because we are kind of like the incubator, first in the nation. We're small. We're easier to, to understand politically, I think. And so, yeah, I mean, this is a huge debacle, and obviously I think a lot of the presidential candidates are going to have to come see O'Brien. I mean, I don't think it would be very smart for them to come and see this Republican Speaker of the House because he wasn't put there by Republicans.
No, the conservative groups, from what I understand, and it wasn't so much the wording exactly, it was how they were speaking about him. Like, lack of respect, huge. And it was comforting to me, I have to tell you.
Yeah, Jane, you should have saw him, Chair's prerogative. We, look at the time, the clock right now.
It's a big word.
We should have been out of here 3 hours ago, and none of these bills taken off consent even came close to being overturned. So if this is what you want to do, then we're going to be having some long days ahead.
Good.
Oh, gee, okay.
Hey,
what I mean? Okay, Sister Superior, now I know what I'm going to do. I didn't realize that we took those bills that were taken off consent was the reason why we're still here. I had no idea why we were still here.
Imagine that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're, right up there, and, with his attitude and just, I hope all the conservative groups are watching this buffoonism because it's just ridiculous. It is. And I don't, I really don't care what he thinks about it because I get asked up there all the time, well, aren't you kind of waiting for your loafer to drop up here? I'm like, well, the loafer can drop, but I don't know what the loafer's going to do when it gets there because what are you going to do? Where are you going to put my seat up? That's what I was saying. My seat's going to end up on top of the gold dome.
Well, it sounds like he believes
seagulls crap on me.
Oh, no.
It certainly sounds like he has the same outlook on things that Obama does, that he should be able to rule by decree. He doesn't understand that democracy, our constitutional republic, was made to be slow, made to be messy, made to be irritating, because they wanted to make it hard to pass stuff through.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's very difficult to pass stuff. So most of the time, it's incredibly difficult to override a veto, so you know where they were thinking there. They don't want these overridden unless, it's something that's important, They don't want it to be an every day of the week thing. They made it difficult. And this guy's just, I don't know. I guess I got to fall back on what Mom says. If you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all. And I said, well, Ma, you might as well just tape my lips shut if I'm going to be up there.
Well, you know the rejoinder to that one, don't you?
Don't say anything unless you have something good to say. And boy, is this good.
He's actually in the room with us using his phone headset. That's why you hear the echo. All right, Guy, we're running up to the end of the segment. Anything else we need to hit real quick?
Nope, nothing that I can think of right now. No word on the budget yet, and so that I'm sure will be a lot to talk about.
We might take a whole segment for that. So, all right, thanks a lot for calling in, and we'll hopefully talk to you next week.
All righty, thank you. Take
care, Jay.
We'll see you.
Bye.
All right, we got the phone lines closed off for a little bit here. All right. Did you have something you want to cover real quick? Because you have to give your headset to him.
I will definitely. I'd love to. Thank you for letting me do this. The New Hampshire Right to Life, of course, of which I'm president. I'm watching really carefully the legislation that's coming out of the House. And I would just like to reiterate the wonderful family platform that we have for the Republican Party, and which supports life at conception and bans the use of public resources to fund or promote abortion. We had 3 bills come up. 194 that says life begins at conception. 670 that was an act relative to the rights of conscience for medical professionals, abortion, and or professionals that don't want to get a flu shot, right, but can get fired because they don't want to take the flu shot, and they have no right of conscience to say no to that. Everybody just thinks it's an abortion issue. 670, right? And then 677, which for me was an absolute killer, preventing public funds from being used to subsidize abortion. Okay? And I think that there were a lot of Republicans that voted against these bills that were not a surprise. These are the typical Emersons, the people that call themselves exactly. They call themselves Republicans, and we know
the Jaspercrats.
Right. But
that's going to be a great term.
There were others though that would surprise you on some of these votes. And I just want to, put out there that we're going to be following these. And we have little campaigns coming up to put the heat where the heat deserves to belong. And you know what? If people are going to call them liberty, they believe in liberty candidates or conservative candidates, and they can't support. I can understand a libertarian that maybe doesn't want to get into a life issue saying life at conception, they can't go for that. I cannot understand a liberty candidate saying that they think public funds should go to support abortion in a private company. Privatized businesses receiving taxpayer money to kill babies for me is a huge no. Huge no. Big sign on the wall that says, don't vote for it, even if you are a big L libertarian. And we're going to watch these votes. We're going to make sure that these reps, that this isn't going to be voting in silence and then you walk away. We're going to make sure we put the heat on them. There are some things that the Republican elected officials should be able to vote for. And not subsidizing Planned Parenthood, in my mind, is a huge no-brainer.
All right, we're going to take 60 seconds. We'll come back with Kevin and Kirk and go on another legislative rampage. We'll be right back.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
All right, we're back. We are back. We are GrokTALK. Thanks to Guy and Jane for filling in our first legislative segment. We're going to move forward to our next legislative segment. We have some gentlemen we love to have in because there's so much stuff to talk about, and they're up in Concord, and they know what the hell's going on. And Kirk McNeil and Kevin Bloom are with us. Good morning, Vietnam. Good morning. How you guys doing?
All right, guys, for the camera, I need you guys to shift logical right a little bit because, Kevin, your head is kind of hidden by his.
I kind of like it that way.
You need to go.
This
is a video podcast. No hiding.
Just back up a little bit more.
And Steve, you come this way. I feel like the stage director at a big TV studio. Come on, move over. That's it.
This is where I have to be. You change your camera. I need to be comfortable. I got to run
Mom,
the show.
He's touching me.
Mom.
Tell him to get back on his side of the seat.
All right, so
not Joe Biden.
Can we start out with the appeal for if one of our brave listeners would like to, we're going to call it sponsor a microphone. Do it for Granite Grok, and if somebody would just do that, someone would really appreciate that.
Sponsor a microphone so we can have another person talking.
Yes.
Because it's GrokTALK.
Exactly.
Talk.
In all seriousness, how much does a microphone run?
Those headsets go about $200 a piece, and what we will end up doing is I have another board because we've already filled this. The newest board, we're already full again. Yeah. So I will lash the two of them together, and that way we can have 12 more.
Yeah,
right.
Well.
So you need about $200 plus another $10 for cables.
I got the cables.
You got the cables.
Have I got cables?
7 of you guys out there listening, $30 a piece. We're done. Make it happen.
I used to have extra money, but somebody jaspered me out of it.
Jaspered you out of it.
That's a new term that I've heard going around.
Jaspered you.
It seems to be synonymous with unprivileged sexual contact.
I thought that was Biden.
You could say that. No, he's just not. That's abidening, maybe, but and abides. No, that's not going to work because that's too good a term.
Well, that's where you get to.
Your wallet got Biden, right? It was groped.
It was just when you're jaspered, it's something completely different. Like
that's
what happens to you at the used car lot.
All these bills
sometimes.
that he's trying to get retained.
Yeah.
He's just biding his time to jasper us on them.
There you go. There you go. If you missed it, Conan O'Brien posted it this morning, gave his daughter the talk. In a tweet, he said, "Just gave my daughter the talk," where I explained that one day Joe Biden might place his hands on her shoulders. So let's talk about, we've got a list. The asset forfeiture reform bill was up. That got retained. Similar topic from previous segment.
That was fun because as soon as the committee hearing began, the committee chair said, "We're going to be retaining this."
That's much of a discussion.
And had said it the week before, and we're happy that so we had been told that, in fact, only 2 people were going to be allowed to speak, and we had Russ Caswell came up, who, of course, owned the motel that was seized in asset forfeiture. Big case in Massachusetts.
Oh, yes, Tewksbury.
Institute for Justice, got involved, and guy couldn't have possibly paid his legal bills. Even when they got in, he had already spent $100,000, and he had to take out a loan to do that. Or he would have.
I think this is the important thing, and this is a mess. Most people, I didn't know a lot about asset forfeiture until I met you, and you came on the show, and we talked about it. Now, I assume, even though I'm more informed than most people, obviously there's still things I haven't got a clue about politically and the way the law works and what happens in the real world. Most people have no clue about asset forfeiture, civil asset forfeiture, or criminal asset forfeiture. They might know, that drug dealer with the car and the boat and the house had all his stuff taken away when he went to jail, and they're like, that's good. But they don't realize, I was reading on Facebook, most of the time it's just regular folks who get their stuff taken by the cops and are never charged with anything.
That's correct. 97% of the people that undergo the civil asset forfeiture never fight it, because the average amount, and we don't have stats from everywhere. I want to make this clear. New Hampshire, the police departments are not required to report, and they don't. And anything you heard to the contrary from the Department of Safety or anything else, that is not true. They gave a couple of numbers. They were all over the place. Once they said 50,000, and once they said 200,000, and then they dropped back to 140, and then they said they needed the money to buy guns. Okay, and the federal stats, they are obliged to report those. That's $1.5 million from New Hampshire. But the stats that we have are from Minnesota, and they show the average forfeiture rate there is $1,400. With, again, that the main people, it costs $2,000 to retain an attorney. Who's going to spend $2,000 to maybe get back?
It's a crazy thing where essentially what's being said in civil asset forfeiture is your stuff might have committed a crime.
Right.
But in criminal asset forfeiture, it's saying that you committed the crime. And all this bill is trying to do is to say, before you can actually forfeit the assets, you need to get a conviction for the individual who is involved in activity.
And I think a lot of people would agree with that. If you, like, Kevin, your example, drug dealer, and they've got all this fancy stuff because of their drug dealing. Yeah, snatch all that stuff. And try to make amends. I don't think people have a problem with that, but if I had $10,000 and I missed a stop sign, or I was going 3 miles an hour over the speed limit, and they decide you're guilty, give us that cash, and I'm out. Most people will go, what the heck?
Actually, you know who needs that drug dealer stuff? This lady.
You got Obama phone?
Yes, everybody in Cleveland loves minority get Obama phone.
Well, I think there was a friend of ours who's doing some work on our brewery who testified in this hearing, and I think it's a perfect example. He's a contractor. He's got a van that is full of tools and full of stuff that he needs to do or he needs to make his living. He also, as many contractors do, occasionally gets paid in cash. He could have an employee who maybe smokes a little weed on his lunch break or something like that.
In his van.
In his van, or near his van.
Well, that's true, too.
Right?
Just in his employ, that's all.
Just in his employ. Right. Somebody associated with that van and his business. And if that individual were to get caught, then he could potentially have his van and his cash and all of his tools and everything seized under civil asset forfeiture, and then he would basically have to go prove that his stuff and his cash was innocent of committing a crime.
You could say that again 100 different times. He has to prove it. not the police.
Exactly.
He has to prove it.
Exactly.
I actually started writing a post when I was emailing you back and forth, and you connected me with that Facebook. I started framing out a post, and the theme of the post is something to the effect of, this is like the playground bully who takes your lunch money, only he has the force of law behind him. You can't. He can come up, punch you, take your cash, and you can't do a damn thing.
Right. And it's interesting to hear the Department of Safety and the Department of Justice come out against this bill, particularly when you look. I don't think we have as big a problem with this in New Hampshire as places like Missouri, for example, or New York, where people really are looking at the police force as an armed gang. And it amazes me that the police here in New Hampshire and the law enforcement supporters here in New Hampshire don't understand that when you have someone who is capable, under banner of law, of bullying people in the way that civil asset forfeiture allows them to bully people, that it creates disrespect for the police department. If you want people to respect law enforcement needs to follow criminal procedures and be respectable.
They need to act responsible or respectful. The thing about this whole issue is that drives me crazy is that they're always saying, well, we need to be able to buy guns, we need to buy vests, we need to buy vehicles, we need to do this and this and this. It's like, right, so why aren't you going to your town fathers, your select boards, your budget committees, and what have you, and say, if the need is really that great, then why aren't you making the case for it there? Same thing at the state level. Why aren't you going to the legislators and saying, we need a bigger budget? And why are you defending
showing up to testify against gun rights in the legislature with their uniforms on?
Yeah.
And that's probably done more to... I can't figure it out why law enforcement really seems to want to take off the gun owners, and that is kind of a tangent. But why are we paying them to show up and testify against citizen legislation?
Progressivism. Man should serve the state.
No doubt.
This is, I don't know, maybe we need to just frame this differently. Maybe the mob has to get in on some of this action. When they go get protection money or they shake somebody down, they should call it civil asset forfeiture. That's what they should do.
Idea.
Because that's what it is, right?
Really, it's fairly uncivil asset forfeiture.
I would call it uncivil, and at some point I would say, you know what, you need to defend yourself against that robber who's inappropriately wearing a uniform.
Well, they do call him Mike, even though he doesn't have one. So we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and talk about some more legislation, because there's so much to talk about. Stay tuned. This is GrokTALK. I'm Steve, here with Kevin and Kirk and Mike and Skip. We'll be right back.
When asked whether she still supports Obamacare, Senator Jeanne Shaheen said,
"Yes, I do continue to support the law. We're beginning to see some positive results."
How can Senator Shaheen say we're seeing positive results when 22,000 of our neighbors have already lost their health insurance? What's worse, the Boston Globe reports the state's only health insurance provider radically reduced the number of hospitals in their network, forcing some people to drive over an hour for lab work, even when there's a hospital within a few miles of their home. When pressed about lack of access, Shaheen said,
"There are some hospitals that are not covered, unfortunately, and I certainly hope that's going to change."
Jeanne Shaheen promised us we could keep our doctors and our healthcare coverage. Now she hopes we can get to a local hospital? Call Senator Shaheen at 603-647-7500. Tell her we need more than hope. We need leadership. Paid for by Citizens for a Strong New Hampshire.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning. You're listening to GrokTALK.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
GrokTALK.
And it is news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com. Welcome back. I'm Steve McDonald here with Skip Murphy, Mike Rogers, Kirk McNeil, and Kevin Bloom. And we are today, let me turn that on for you. We are GrokTALK. GrokTALK's a constantly changing sphere of people around a table having a conversation about whatever piques our interest.
And we're still the most dangerous and best armed podcast in the nation.
Especially right now, probably.
Probably so.
Yeah.
Very much. So, it is, yeah. Come by. If you're afraid of guns, this is not the place to be.
Yeah, knock first.
Yeah, well,
Oh, I don't know. I think everybody in here is being very safe and responsible with their
we are very
firearms.
safe and responsible with our firearms. And you can come by and we'll sit down and talk to you about guns or anything you want.
Oh, but those liberals, they say, these people own a pub. There's alcohol there. Alcohol and guns don't mix.
Well, I try not to mix my alcohol with my gun because it causes
rust.
Yeah, you ever try to stir one? You get gun oil in there. It's just horrible.
It's just dumb. Anyway, it's funny. We've had all these crazy liberals coming out and saying all these crazy things. Some of them are even. Some of them are even. Some of them are even in charge of things. And every time they say something, I'm like, oh yeah, just like Vermont. Right? Gangs are going to come up and attack citizens. Oh, yeah, just like Vermont. We're going to have shootouts. Oh, yeah, just like Vermont. Everybody's like, they don't have that in Vermont. I'm like, no kidding.
Well, they said that the roads would be rivers of blood in Florida when they introduced looser gun laws. Yes. All the old people are still alive, and now in Illinois,
and driving.
Yeah, yeah, that's more of a problem than carrying the guns.
Did you probably saw in the news where a gentleman who was 92 years old ran into several people, and they decided not to charge him. Man, I mean, what's he got to do? Drive up on a sidewalk and run into a pedestrian?
Well,
he can't even get busted for that.
He's got to run over. Right? He's got to run over a woman, a black, or a Muslim, and then it's a hate crime.
How about what about ducks?
Ducks?
You can run over 5
ducks.
Ducks. You kill baby ducks and nothing happens to you.
No, you just get to open up a restaurant
without a license.
Wagwan, easy.
You're right. That's the thing about, and you probably saw the story this morning that came up about in the FBI Academy that one of the people that was taking instruction, it says his firearm unintentionally discharged and shot him in the leg. I was like, excuse me. So, of course, the gun was sorry later. And it said it'll never do it again. Yeah. But it just unintentionally discharged itself because that's how accidents... Oh, was it an accidental discharge?
Some people do have problems with AD, and there's no medicine you can take. It just...
AD?
Accidental discharge.
Yeah.
It's not ED.
Thank you. I'm not going there.
So, anyway...
Thank you.
Please, we were talking on the break about how we were going to come back in, and this isn't it. So
right, we did, and we were talking about how during the Revolution, or before the Revolution, the British would seize funds from whoever had them under the theory that you must be a smuggler. So therefore, your gains were ill-gotten. And going back even further to the witchcraft trials, your property was accused of a crime of being allied with Satan, so therefore we need your ranch.
Right. So
which would remove the Satanism.
No doubt. It had to be ritually purified. like at a sheriff's sale or
But with
something.
civil asset forfeiture.
Right, yes.
Few people recognize how that is a ritual purification method. So, but the other thing that we were saying is that, this weird presumption that because you have property, because you have cash, that you must be involved in some nefarious activity is just crazy to me. And I think it's one of those big disconnects that public employees, no matter how honorable their intentions might be, have a bit of a disconnect with people who live and operate in the real world, where sometimes exchanges are cash, sometimes exchanges are barter, sometimes exchanges are services being bartered back and forth. So if you've got stuff that you can't directly account for by saying, yes, I got this paycheck with all these things taken out of it, and then it went directly into my bank account, and blah, 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 that you must be guilty of something. Well, just accuse
And of course,
the property.
you are guilty.
And
let's
sooner or
face
later,
it,
you will
really.
be guilty of something.
No one is innocent.
Well, you may chuckle as you say that, Kevin, but I think more and more as we go through all the blogs that we do on a daily basis, we are starting to see that change from innocent until proven guilty only being said in the court of law. That you see with the rise of the social media, the shaming for political correctness infractions, not what I would consider real stuff. Are you cheating on your wife? Are you doing this? I mean, behaving really badly according to the traditional values that we used to have. Oh, the Democrats and progressives celebrate that kind of stuff.
Well, Ayn Rand once said that really the multiplication of all the laws was because they wanted everyone to be guilty of something so that they could put you in jail when they wanted to. And even when I was a teenager, I thought that, why does government so interested in buses? What's this public transportation thing? Why do we need all those buses? And I realized they just want you on the bus. They don't really care if you go anywhere. They know you're on the bus.
Well, the problem is that
Skip,
like
he's on the bus.
Like up in my area in the Lakes region, the Winnipesaukee bus service. I wrote a little bit of a series of posts a few years ago going into how much is this costing us and how many riders are in there, because they'd go by and I'd count the people, 1, 2. And after that came out, a couple papers picked it up. What did they do? They tinted all the windows.
Wow. Yeah,
So the solution to wasting money is to spend more money on tinting windows.
But they now do that nationwide.
Oh yeah.
That's a really good point. And actually, I want, if I could, just segue into yet another tangent that's very related to everything you're
We're
talking
ADD
about.
bloggers. We do it all the time.
Okay, here's a big problem. We have a really massive problem in documentation right now. This has come up, and I was talking to some of our reps this morning about it, and I said, what happened with the poker bill? And what happened with this bill? What happened that when we look on the docket online, and it says the bill was exec on the 18th. Well, what happened? What was the vote? And then I contacted a member of the committee and said, so what happened with the exec? And he says, I don't think it happened yet. So that people on the committees don't know the events that we had with Jim Spillane's bill. Poker bill was a great example. It came out in 2 different calendars, and it was scheduled on 2 different days. The most recent one that said it was a Friday. The one before that said it was a Thursday. The House sent out 2 emails, one of which said it was canceled, and the other one said, no, it isn't canceled. So the opposition showed up on Thursday and spoke against the bill, and we found out about it afterwards. And the sponsor wasn't notified either. And we had somebody in there, and they said, well, we came in at the time it was supposed to be there on Friday. And they said, well, we heard it once. We're not going to hear it again.
Yeah, and I'm sure that you could blame a little bit of this on the weather, except that I'm pretty sure that if you ran for office here, you do realize that you live in New Hampshire, and that occasionally it's going to snow.
So, of course, Jim was thinking, oh, they're after me. They're on to me. They know I'm a conservative, and they're going to go get me, which is probably true. But on the other hand, it's happened to everybody else. And I was talking to people that work in the education department. They say it's constant. The docket's always wrong. It's not updated. They don't update the records to let you know when executive sessions are going to be or what the progress of the bills is.
Is this a long-term problem, or is this new?
This is new. This is
So
brand
this
new.
is all under the reign of Jasper.
Well, last session, and I know there's been a little change, in the House clerks, but he was there for many years.
Right. He's not inexperienced in that office. He's just inexperienced in that position. But I would hesitate to lay that at his doorstep.
But they're saying that some of the reps are saying it's the committees, that the leaders of the committees not getting the information out to the system. So I do not know whether that's true
So
or
we
not.
need somebody
it's a
in
real
the clerk's
problem.
office to cough up some
answers,
some anonymous tips of some sort.
Right. Let's work on that one.
Hello, New Hampshire House Clerk's Office. My email is steve@granitegrock.com. Okay,
So that was a fun one. We're also interested in industrial hemp.
Hemp, of course. We like to talk about industrial hemp because it comes up every year.
Yeah, it seems since 1990. Well, that was funny. In committee, Representative Robertson got up, and he's on the committee, and so he said, well, I just want to, talk about this, and gets behind the counter. He said, I introduced this bill 20 years ago. And he said, it's about time. I keep hearing about it every session, which it sounds like it's going to go. The feds have already said, well, all right, you can do it.
In the last farm bill, they basically said, if the state
okay.
says it's okay to grow hemp, then it's okay to grow hemp.
But the state has to say it's okay first.
Right, and as we've talked about before, where this isn't the smoking hemp, this is hempcrete, this is rope, this is lots of uses for this industrial material.
Concrete.
It's not a drug.
Feed for dairy cows,
right?
which is 31% of our agricultural product here in
So,
New
I
Hampshire.
mean, this is a perfect, this isn't, reefer madness. It's hempcrete. It's hempcrete.
That's right. We want
it's
some.
rope. It's, it's this very useful thing that we can grow, and for you in the left, tax if that's what you're into. I mean, really, is that what we need to do? We need to bribe you a little. You could tax it. Oh, I could. I should support that.
Well, we did send the whole committee a link to the video Hemp for Victory that was produced by the U.S. Department of Agriculture in 1942.
Hemp for Victory.
Not enough hemp there, but it went very well, and we had speakers on the left.
Well, that's good because every year we talk about this bill or a version of this bill, and it's like it's not nobody's excited about it.
I would say I believe the hearing went better this time around. It seemed like the folks on the committee were mostly better informed and much less adversarial than some of them have been in the past.
Right, no one spoke against the bill.
Well, that's good.
At all, which is rare for anything.
And they didn't retain it.
No, they didn't retain it, and they didn't limit. Yeah, they had a lot of people speaking for it, and they never said, well, we just want you to shut up after about 30 seconds or whatever.
We think it's a great bill, but we don't like you, so we're going to retain it. No.
Right.
Yeah, I had a good time when I stood up for the hearing on HB 636, and the chair was just saying, well, all we have now is individuals, and so I stood up and supposedly didn't have anyone who was representing a group, and then he noticed that I was standing up directly in front of him and said, oh, I see we have someone from the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance here. So, and then he said, if you watch the tape, he says, well, you have 3 minutes or less written on your card. And he said, 3 seconds is a lot shorter than 3 minutes. I said, yeah, it is.
Wow.
I said, wouldn't that be nice, huh?
So you just, is that civil asset forfeiture? You seized my 3 minutes?
That was kind of like, I don't think this is going to work. So I kept it short and just said, basically the police say the same thing as they did. First they start out with heroin. And then they go directly from that to, we never do this, and if you make us stop, it will cost us a lot of money.
That's the thing that made me laugh when I read your email.
Oh, yeah.
They don't do it, but if you don't let them do it, they'll lose a lot of money.
And they said that.
Right.
How?
There's usually about 15 to 20 minutes of other stuff that separates those two statements.
Right.
But every single time, someone representing, I'm just going to go with the police. Sometimes it's the Department of Justice. Sometimes it's somebody in law enforcement will say those two things, bookending their entire testimony.
And always in the sort of the way it's, well, that money we get from that money, heck, I couldn't wash my dog with that much money. I wouldn't even stop and pick it up if I saw it on the pavement. We can't be bothered with these little tiny amounts of money, and that's all we ever see. But don't take it away. Please.
Don't take it away. That's how we...
Because it's our money now. So you thought it was your money, but now it isn't.
Well, actually, that brings up the important point, is that are we getting to that tipping point, especially with progressives? Well, with progressives, we're there well past the tipping point. Whose money is it? Really?
Right.
And we're seeing, have things changed since the Revolutionary War times? The Brits were saying, hey, you must have done something wrong. It's our money. We're the government.
That brings up another bill, though, and I think this is a perfect segue, right? They do keep acting like it's their money. And I suppose they did print it at some point in time, so maybe that's where the argument comes from, which brings up the Bitcoin bill, which is a great little segue as far as alternative currencies and being able to pay your taxes, your fines, or your contractors in things like silver and gold and bitcoins.
And the opposition is saying blood's going to run in the streets.
They are.
Really will.
They're like, man, if you make it so that we can't track the money, then people will just start killing each other for the money. That makes a lot of sense.
And since you can't track it, you won't even know if that's why they killed him.
Oh, my goodness. Right. What could be worse than that?
Oh,
for us not to know where
horrible.
all the money is
That's
at
horrible.
any given time.
We're going to take 60 seconds. We'll come back.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Singing the Asset Forfeiture Blues.
Well,
in the market basket parking lot.
The police are doing the happy dance, the happy chair dance. Yeah, I got to change
wait,
the happy
dance?
chair dance. Yes.
We got your money. Okay, so enough of that.
But that's more fun.
Yeah, well, poker's fun.
Poker, you want to talk about poker?
Poker is fun.
Yes,
it's true.
We touched on it briefly.
Yeah, Jim explains. Well, it's a real simple bill. It just says that poker shall be defined as a game of skill with respect to RSA 647-2.
And anybody who plays poker will tell you that they want to play with people who have no skill. So that tells you right there.
And we're back to civil
Right.
And that is a much more civil way to forfeit your assets.
Yeah, look at it's a voluntary taxation.
It is, it's
and we'll get into Dan McGuire's bill about video poker. I did not realize what a cool bill that was. Okay. You know that it's allowing 6 slot machines in any place that's licensed to sell alcohol, but the money is used to offset property taxes.
Ooh.
It's okay. All right. Granted, it's now.
What
it's
a way to
taxation.
get somebody else to pay your property tax.
Massachusetts. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Maine and Vermont will pay all of our property taxes. That just seems fair.
Yeah. See, my only problem with that stuff is that if somebody spends all the rent money or the mortgage money and all that other stuff, bad decisions have bad consequences. We all are going to be on the hook for paying the social cost of that, and that's where if somebody wants to throw money at it, let them do it. But the problem is, then some poor, good-hearted sap is going to say, "Oh, then we have to take care of their family." No, because they're just going to go do it again.
No, it's going to be worse than that. They're going to say now you have a social obligation to go gamble your paycheck, so that you can take it all and then give it back to you in smaller
Actually,
amounts.
we already do that. It's called FICA.
Yes, indeed, and we're going to spend all the money on hookers and blows. So too bad for you.
That's the Secret Service.
That's the EBT cards. Well,
those are the ones that got caught.
Who gave EBT cards to the Secret Service?
And the GSA, Government Services Administration.
So poker's cool, and this basically it's illegal to play a game at home.
And somebody
for money.
tell Joe Biden we're talking about poker as in the game of chance cards.
Right.
Yeah, and it's not polka.
It's not polka.
Right. We are not going to polka.
No polka.
But
I don't have any polka, sorry.
We can have it would change things enormously, and we'd get essentially a California style thing where you have game room. People will start up card rooms around the state, and this is without a big $70 million casino.
Will there be drinking there because people with guns will show up and it'll
now,
be a bloody mess.
That's a fun thing because gambling is forbidden right now at any place that serves alcohol. But strangely enough, if you define poker as not gambling, then why not? And we did mention this to the committee. We said you can play euchre for money, you can play bridge for money, and you can play Magic the Gathering for money. But you can't play poker for money.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
So-
doesn't Maggie want to put Keno machines into bars?
I'm down with that.
I haven't
I
asked
mean,
her.
I don't want.
I don't know.
I don't think it should be forced. It shouldn't be mandatory Keno machines. But
Yeah,
we're
this
all right with
this
that.
is Governor Maggie, the Red Hassan.
Yes.
Well, she can. I'd let her.
She's
put a
keen
Keno
on Keno.
machine in.
Right. Yeah.
Sure. I got no problem with that.
Keno is definitely one of those games played by people who don't understand the odds.
Yeah,
It's kind of like the New Hampshire lottery in that
Idiot.
respect.
It's an idiot attraction.
It's an income
A tax
tax
on
for people who
people
are bad at math.
That's right. There you go.
We did have for the poker bill.
For voting.
Yeah.
Right.
There, a gentleman did show up to testify in favor of the poker bill, and who is a mathematics professor here in New Hampshire, and he explained it quite well. Did a very good job of laying it out for everybody, just how the math adds up and why this is definitely not a game of chance.
And many of the committee members did say that, well, it may be a game of skill, but not the way I play it.
So we invited them to a
everybody
poker game.
spend
At least they were
we
honest,
played
yeah.
in school games too, and
We're
yes,
going to take
we've
a
had
break
nights.
and we're going to play a few hands.
Yeah.
Everybody get
Like
your wallets
that.
out.
Yeah. Do you guys ever bring cameras to these hearings?
Bill Alleman actually does a great job.
Yes, he does.
And we do have to post. You sent me the link to the video.
Yeah.
Biker Bill, and I do have it. I just didn't get a chance to put it up.
Okay.
He's got a real cool old Harley too.
He does. Yeah, I
Yes.
like Biker Bill.
And
All right,
he does that free. By the way, he doesn't
Oh,
charge
yeah. Oh, yeah.
anything
Oh,
to do that. He's
like
a
us.
volunteer.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. He's a volunteer, and he goes in and he.
Except he goes up to the
takes-
State House with a camera and records stuff. So.
And boy, if you're WMUR and you get in front of him, you look out. You got just cut off the wrong guy.
All right, we got about 5 minutes left. You want to talk about beer?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah,
Let's talk about
about beer.
Congratulations, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Now you can tell them why I'm saying that.
Well, Kevin has done tons of hard work over the years with Nano Brewery bills, and now it's time for him to profit from
It's
that.
not Nana, it's Nano.
Nano, yes.
Although that
Sure.
might be a good marketing spin if you got somebody's grandma to open a Nano brewery.
Nana's Brewery.
Nana's
I like it.
Nano brewery, a Nana.
Nana pudding.
Nana so let's talk about beer.
So
We
what's the name of your?
It is called Area 23.
Do you have a camera on me, please?
And
Oh, hold on.
Oh, yeah.
Hold on.
Okay. You can
Closer.
shoot that.
Closer. 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 Let's get all of.
How wide is the angle on that lens?
Not much.
No, well,
It's basically your head.
my head. Great. See, I don't like being videotaped.
We're going to be
that's good.
tattooed with Area 23 on our heads. Sort of a marketing tool.
See, bad at math, half of Area 51.
It was no. We explained that. We told him. They said, "How'd you come up with that number?" And we said, "Well, we added Area 51 to building 19 and a half, divided by pi, and rounded it up to the nearest whole prime number." And we're not good at math.
It's either that or
Bravo! 2 points.
Yep. It's either that or that's the number of Monty Python sketches we can do off the cuff.
Oh,
And then we start
maybe.
talking about the 23rd hexagram of the I Ching, which is very interesting, and we had to explain what the I Ching was. But it's kind of cool because the 23rd hexagram is basically it's Earth over mountain, and
Yes.
it indicates the I Ching was written for princes, and it's an advice book for princes, and it has hexagrams in there, either a solid line or a broken line. And so if you want to see what the number means, you look in the book and you look for that symbol of the 23, and it means essentially that it's a volcano, that it's going to blow up.
Right.
So it has a good, nice connotation. And it says, in the I Ching, it says, and the worst sort of people, the existing order will be overthrown, and the worst sort of people are going to take over. Oh, that would be all of us. That's my interpretation of what it means. So I look at it as an optimistic kind of thing. So we're going to have a lot of different kinds of beer. We want to have 4.
To quote Bill Murray, raining cats and dogs. No, cats and dogs living together.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's what's going to happen.
Total chaos.
And you did say in the pre-show that you might be able to do podcasting from there.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
We've actually done a couple of podcasts from there already. We're setting up the office so that it's got, some acoustic foam and, a nice table in there.
Ooh.
Very similar to this one.
Exactly.
And
it has carpet. That's important, we think. Probably.
But yeah, we should be open in roughly a month or so.
Something like
that. And if anybody wants to follow the progress, they can go to Area 23 Concord on Facebook or thearea23.com. So
excellent. We have any beer bills?
There's a whole bunch of beer bills, and I tried to look them up, but none of them are listed. So they've all been. It was a great committee.
They've actually
hearing.
all been exec'd already, right? We don't even.
Yeah, no, they have. I'm pretty
Really?
sure they have been.
Oh. Wow.
And there are a whole lot of bills. One of them was our perpetual one that we want to have to label freedom, and it was reintroduced by Keith Murphy and kind of changed it so that it gave the Liquor Commission the authority to decide whether a baby eating oatmeal is really a danger to the body public or not. The bill that I introduced a couple years ago was it takes all authority for censorship away from the state whatsoever. But he made it softer. And then the Liquor Commission said, we don't want the authority to make that decision. Now, yeah, that's what my eyes look like too. It's like, huh? Really? And he's like, no, we want a clear line, so you tell us what to do. We don't want to make these decisions. That's work. I didn't say that last bit.
No, but...
so then we could have Founders Breakfast Out, and it really is only applied to beer. If you look, there's all kinds of liquor bottles and wine bottles that have children on them. Hey, and Mary, Joseph, and Jesus, right out on a beer label. Just can't, because it depicts a minor, and that's what's against the law. It's crazy.
What's crazy is you can't put a picture of a minor with this little headlamp on the bottle of beer, but you can sell things like adult chocolate milk at the liquor store.
And Representative Gidge took one of the Founders bottles that somebody brought with him, and he drew a little mustache on the baby, and he said, okay, now is that an adult now? To the Liquor Commission, and they're like, well, that's kind of above our pay grade.
It's a midget. It's a midget.
He's like, but it still looks like I did try it. I said, it's a midget. It's not really a baby, and they weren't buying it. I was like, you're discriminating against the little people. I don't like it.
And those of us who represent the Lollipop Guild object, sir.
You tell me you have a little problem with that? Or?
Yes. I just have a wee tadger of a problem with that characterization, sir.
How about if you put a mustache in and go tea on the baby? Would that work?
You think, and is it a baby? I don't think so, but that's just me.
It's a
It
doll.
keeps me from getting carded.
It's a
At least I assume
looking-
it's the goatee. that
Maybe.
keeps me from
Maybe.
getting
I had a
carded.
friend who was 17 when drinking was 18.
Right.
Way back when. And he had a full beard in high school. He never got carded.
Yeah.
Like, he's younger than me!
There's some other bills, and one of them that was to relieve the beer selling. Actually, right now, a store that sells beer and wine is forced to carry $3,000 in groceries in inventory.
Oh, that's right, yep.
So we're
Got
trying to
about
get
10
rid
seconds.
of that. All right. Well, it looks like lots of good things will come out of commerce. We hope.
I hope so. That would be a nice change, wouldn't it?
Indeed.
All right. Well, Kirk McNeil and Kevin Boom, thank you so much for coming in and spending some time with us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Coming up next, Doctor Gerard Gianoli, who performs a healthcare practice without accepting any kind of insurance. It's cash for services. We're going to have him on the phone. We're going to talk about that in his Wall Street Journal article. Gentlemen, keep up the good work. Keep the emails coming so we can, keep this business on. All right. This is GrokTALK. We'll be right back.
Senator Jeanne Shaheen said, if you like your current health plan, you can keep it. That's not true, Senator. 22,000 New Hampshire citizens have been kicked off their insurance plans. Hospitals in Rochester, Concord, and Portsmouth, they aren't allowed to provide care under the exchange. Senator, you were wrong in your comments. You should apologize for your misleading remarks. I'm calling Senator Shaheen at 750-3004 and telling her I want my doctor back. You should too.
Paid for by saberpac.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidate committee.
We are struggling. Rising healthcare costs are part of the problem. Senator Jeanne Shaheen helped create this mess we're in. As a state senator, her bill chased 21 insurers out of our state. It reduced our choices, raised prices for New Hampshire families, and when Jeanne Shaheen supported Obamacare, it limited access to 10 of our 26 hospitals, reducing our choices again. Tell Jeanne Shaheen she's made healthcare worse. Few things are as important as finding the right doctor. And under Obamacare, that's harder than ever. over a third of our hospitals no longer available. Our doctors no longer covered. Fewer choices, longer drives. No state has been harder hit than us. And even after watching it impact New Hampshire, Congresswoman Ann Custer still supports it. Call Ann Custer. Tell her Obamacare isn't working for New Hampshire.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com.
GrokTALK.
All right, welcome back to GrokTALK. Brought to you by GrokTALK.com and the coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers who allow us to use the space and allow us to pay for phone lines and internet and all that other cool stuff that allow us to bring you this podcast every week when we feel like it.
Mostly.
Mostly. Thanks again to, of course, Guy Comtois for coming in the first segment and Jane for dropping in to give us a quick legislative update. And then, of course, we just had Kirk McNeil and Kevin Bloom here to talk about asset forfeiture and a handful of other issues. They're really important to us. We're going to switch gears and move on back. Well, I don't know about switch gears. We talk about healthcare a lot, don't we?
Yes, we do.
We talk about Obamacare a lot. Of course, our ads during the break are some that have been around for a while, but they still work because Obamacare is still a problem. We have a gentleman on the phone who has his own solution to this problem. Doctor Gerard Gianoli is a physician who accepts no private or government insurance, and we have him on the phone. Dr. Gianoli, how are you doing this morning?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on the show, guys.
Oh, great to have you on, because this is an important thing, and I think that our listeners need to understand that this actually works. So you have an article in the Wall Street Journal called Saying Goodbye to Third-Party Medical Payments, and you start out with the Affordable Care Act is raising costs, restricting patient choice and doctor freedom, and putting bureaucrats in the treatment room. And you mentioned that the onus is now on physicians to innovate and improve patient outcomes with the within the restrictive confines of the Obamacare world. So why don't you tell our listeners how you're dealing with that?
Well, first of all, just to lay it out there, I was not happy with how things were before Obamacare. Mm-hmm. And the three main issues were, number one, rising cost, number two, access, and number three, increasing bureaucracy. And my partner and I, seeing all this and seeing how things were going and also seeing Obamacare would certainly make things worse, we decided 10 years ago, actually, to move out of all the third-party contracts. Since the advent of Obamacare, it's actually made things worse. Obamacare has, its promises was to improve those problems. It's actually made everything worse. And our solution to it, which was to just eliminate the contracts with the third-party payers, solves virtually all those problems. The way it works in my practice is the patients will call. On the phone, before they even schedule a visit, they're told how much the visit will cost. So they can decide right on the phone whether it's worth it or not. They're not going to get any surprise bill, a month later or whatever. They show up for the visit. At the time of the visit, they pay for the visit. Then we give them a HCFA form, which is sort of like a receipt, which they then sign and lick an envelope, mail it off to their own insurance company, and the patient gets reimbursed based on how much their insurance allows. So it's different for every patient. But my prices are the same. Compare that to what we traditionally see right now in any medical practice, where you call, ask them how much it's going to cost. I dare say no one will be able to tell you how much it's going to cost.
I bet you're right.
Second, you go have the visit, and on your way out say, okay, I'll pay for it. They won't be able to tell you after the visit how much it costs. You'll get a bill a couple months later, a surprise bill for how much it is, and you'll often be surprised on the upside, if you follow me. And it's different for everybody. You can have 2 people, 3 people go in and have the same exact thing done. They're going to have three different bills. It's crazy.
It is crazy. I know that I've had situations where my wife has had insurance and I've had insurance. And, of course, it's different for me. When I go, my insurance is the primary, hers is the secondary. And when she goes, hers is the primary and mine is the secondary. And they always screw it up. You always end up – and the thing that always bothered me was they eventually fix it. But my doctor or my dentist, they don't get paid for like 12 or 18 months. That's crazy.
Well, sometimes they don't get paid at all.
Well, that's true.
Because they'll say something like, oh, you didn't fill out this form right, or dot this I or cross this T. We're not going to pay you at all. That's the interesting thing. When we do it the way my office does, okay, a lot of times the insurance company will send the payment to me, okay? And what we do is we write, with a big black marks a lot, we write on top of the check, void, mail it back with a letter saying, we don't have a contract with you. This is supposed to be sent to the patient. Okay, so then they'll cut a check and send it to the patient. Well, a few months later, the insurance company inevitably will send a letter to us saying, you know that payment we sent you, we made a mistake. We overpaid you. We want 30% of it back. Okay, and with the doctors that have the insurance contracts, they have no option. They have to give that money back or it's pulled out of future earnings. Whereas with the patient, they never ask it back from the patient.
Now, I know that I assume that at some point you actually dealt with third-party insurance, and you had to keep people on staff to deal with it. What was your overhead for just managing that kind of business?
Well, to give you an idea, before we transitioned to the third-party free practice, we had 11 employees for 2 doctors. Afterwards, we had 5.
Wow.
You know, and you can imagine how much I'm paying for each employee. The other big upshot with this third-party free practice is I can charge significantly lower prices than my competitors. And I'll give you a good example that is more what I do is relatively rare. I do neuro-otology, which is inner ear stuff. I mainly deal with vertigo, dizziness problems. But let me give you an example from something almost all women have to deal with: mammograms. Okay. After a certain age, women have to have a mammogram done to rule out or screen for breast cancer. Okay, it's a very common thing. My wife recently had a mammogram done, and I ordered it for her. She goes in, and she says, well, you know, we've got a $10,000 deductible. Let me just pay the bill right now beforehand so you don't have to send me a bill in the mail. And they tell her, oh, no, ma'am, let's just submit it to your insurance and see what happens. And, you know, okay, all right, fine. So they submit us a bill. Of course, 3 months later, we get the bill. The charge is for $350. With the insurance discount, it brings it down to $250. Okay. However, if she would have paid cash in advance, especially if it would have been during Breast Cancer Awareness Week, it would have been $50 cash.
Wow.
So it would have been better for her to have not even filed it with insurance, just paid cash. And the same thing is true with my practice. And you may say, this just doesn't make sense. And the reason it makes sense is the radiology unit knows they'd rather have $50 cash in hand than a promise that they might get $350 or $250 3 months down the road, knowing that a good number of them, the insurance company is going to say, oh, we're not going to pay this. This is denied. Wrong indication. Oop, you didn't cross this I, cross that T, dot this I. And so a number of those, they're not going to get anything for. And the ones that they do get some money for, they're going to have to pay an employee $20 an hour to fight with the insurance company. And how many hours for each one little bill that they rack up these $20 an hour takes away from all their profit.
Oh, yeah, this is like when somebody sends you a bill for 81 cents and it costs them $1.86 just to send the bill.
Something like that.
You know, and this is Skip, by the way. Thanks for coming on the show. You know, we've been as political bloggers, we've been watching the medical field as lay people, but watching the politics thereof and the economics as well. And certainly we know that with the government paying well over 51% of the market cost now, we really don't have a free market society, which you are on that cutting trend of concierge-type service where here's our rates, pay it yourself. You're going back to a free market economy where people will know what they're buying, that there's nobody interfering in the middle, there's no insurance or a set of insurance companies, there's no government and multiple government entities involved. Like with my son, he gets VA benefits, but then if he takes advantage of this free choice, he gets to go to a regular hospital, depending on what's going on. So you're right, everything's all a mishmash, and you don't know what's going on. The medical professionals don't know what they're going to get paid, the patients don't know what they're going to pay, and the insurance companies don't know what's paying. And then we wonder why this isn't working. So do you see with that backdrop, the question is, do you see more of your fellow doctors going more and more to this business model, and two, where the government is pushing more and more people into government-controlled health care? Do you see a time when the government's going to tell you, you will accept payment from us or you will lose your license?
Excellent question. And you actually made several points I usually make during these interviews. The one being there is no free market in medicine right now outside of practices like my own. We really haven't had a free market since the 1960s.
Yep.
But as far as the trend of doctors going toward what I'm doing, actually there's two trends. And this came out just recently, late 2014, in a Physicians Foundation poll of 20,000 physicians. And what we've seen in the last 6 years, basically since the advent of, or the beginning of putting together Obamacare, 6 years ago, 2008, over two-thirds of doctors were private practice owners. Okay? Mm-hmm. As of 2014, it's only about a third.
Oh, yeah. Who wants to deal with all those medical codes?
Well, yeah, part of it's the increasing bureaucracy. The other part is reducing reimbursement to the point where doctors, and I know people are going to find this shocking, they cannot make a living in private practice. And so what's happening is there's three trends. One is if they're old enough and they've got enough money saved away, they're retiring. Two, they're becoming employees of big corporate hospital situations. They're becoming employees. And third is they're doing some sort of cash-based practice, either concierge or third-party free, like myself. And when we did it 10 years ago, it was less than 1% of doctors. Currently, it's around 7.5%, and there's another 12.5% saying that they're anticipating doing something like this in the near future. But I think ultimately what you're going to have is the vast majority of doctors are going to be employees of big corporate hospital structures, probably somewhere in that 85% range, and the other 15% will be either concierge or third-party free. And it may be helpful to just kind of make the distinction between concierge and third-party free. Concierge is not what I do. Concierge is mainly primary care doctors like internists, pediatricians, family physicians. And what you do is you pay them a subscription price. And what you get in return is 24/7 access to the doctor. You get his cell phone number. You get as long of an office visit as you need. And the doctor promises to keep his patient population very low. Like a typical internist may have 6,000 patients. This guy will say, well, I'm going to have only about 400 patients. Some of those doctors will take insurance, some will not, but that's separate from the subscription price. Third-party free is what I do, and that's mainly more of the and there's some internists that will do this as well, but it's basically just, no contracts with any third-party payers, and you just pay us cash. We give you the HCFA form, and you deal with your own insurance company.
All right, we're going to take a quick 60-second break. Stay on the line, sir, and we'll be right back.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
All right, we are back. We are talking to Doctor Gerard Gianoli, who doesn't take insurance. He lets his patients handle that side of the operation. I guess we've covered a lot of things. How's business? I mean, I assume you have patients who are happy with this arrangement, obviously.
Absolutely. That's probably one of the biggest questions I have from physicians. The interesting thing is when I do I talk to a lot of physicians groups about going third-party free and how to do it, and I also talk to lay, non-physicians. Non-physicians seem extremely accepting of the whole model. The physicians are the ones who are more leery of it, and the reason for that is this. You can imagine if someone's got their insurance and they've got a $5 copay to see one doctor versus they got to pay everything up front with this other doctor, who do you think they're going to go see? So consequently, they're worried they're going to go bankrupt. And so you mentioned that I'm in the free market, but I'm in the free market competing with some major disadvantages in that my competitors are seen by the patients as being free and they have to pay for me. So I have to provide something that the other guys can't. And there's a number of ways that I'm able to survive. The main thing being my field of dealing with vertigo requires a good, long, thorough history and physical that may require typically an hour, hour and a half initial office visit. It requires extensive testing that the insurance companies won't reimburse even at the level of your overhead. And then third, it requires extensive counseling afterwards. Well, the way the insurance companies reimburse the doctors, they'll reimburse them the same for a very complex vertigo patient as they would for spending 2 minutes getting wax out of somebody's ear. So my competitors spend 2 minutes with the vertigo patients, and consequently they're not getting better. And so if they want to get better, they have to come see me.
Wonderful. Before the break, I asked the question because about the government saying, we don't like this. We see this as a loophole because this gets you out of seeing all those brand new people that we have promised affordable care to, and you're basically showing up the government by showing them demonstrably how unaffordable care is, partly because of what you just talked about, that there's the perception that other doctors are free with a $5 copay, whereas they got to ante up to see you.
But as we know, free basically means unavailable. The joke which I frequently repeat about the British having bad teeth.
Yeah.
Because the dentists are free.
Yeah.
You can't get one.
And that's really where I'm going with this question, is that how dare you make the government poobahs look bad with this model? And do you think that there's going to be a backlash to this?
There already is to some extent. There's a movement to, currently right now, physicians get their licenses from the state. And there's a movement for national licensure. And the reason for that is so they can institute something along the lines of, okay, now in order for you to maintain your license, you have to take Obamacare, Medicare, everything.
Yep.
And that's part of what that is. Although I think it's real low on their priority list right now because the vast majority of doctors, they're trying to herd into the big corporate employment structure because once they become employees of the big hospital corporations, they have control over them.
Well, and they have control over the patient records, too, because all that's centralized and computerized.
Absolutely. And then, at least initially, they're not worried about getting more doctors in. What they would more likely do, have more nurse practitioners and physicians' assistants where they can train them quicker, get them out there, and they're less costly than the doctors. In a way, they don't want more doctors because they're more expensive, and that means more people will see doctors and they're going to have to spend more money.
So in essence, we're walking down what we've already seen in Britain with the NHS, where they substitute the quality for quantity, and it just all goes downhill. We watch this, as you could tell. Mike, one of the Groxers here with his accent, is from Britain, and he still has connections back home to hear about all this stuff. But we see it in the paper all the time. And do you forecast us hitting that low level of quality?
Yeah, well, I can tell you stories from the current corporate medicine. I mean, we are absolutely immersed in nurse practitioners and physicians' assistants in the group practices we go to, which are affiliated with the most excellent but very corporate Southern New Hampshire Medical Center. And what we find is we end up shopping for the best physician assistants. In other words, you know who the good ones are, you figure it out pretty quickly, and you make sure those are the ones you see.
I totally agree. There is that push for lower quality, more quantity. The one big difference here in the United States as opposed to Canada is you can go outside the system and pay for private health care. It's just because we're having all of our money drained toward paying for this big boondoggle of American medicine, you can afford less. You're less likely to be able to afford to go out and pay for private medicine.
When you talk to these groups about the third-party system, what's your pitch? How do you sell it to them?
Well, the big thing is it restores the patient-physician relationship, and it makes medicine more fun, and then you can survive. It's not a means to make a boatload of money. Frankly, if I wanted to make a lot of money, what I would do is I would accept every single insurance in the book, and I'd run the patients in and out like cattle. See 100 patients a day, and I'd make a boatload of money. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't be able to look myself in the mirror, and I wouldn't be happy with what I was doing. What I see is I see a lot fewer patients. I spend more time with them, and I have a whole lot more fun. My patients have become sort of my extended family, and that's something that, in my mind, money can't buy.
Well, you went to medical school and stuff, so I mean, do you feel like that's the way most doctors think? They want to have,
certainly to begin with. But what happens is then they get stuck. Okay, right now doctors are coming out with debts in excess of $300,000 in student loans. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then once they get out, they have to do a residency, which can last anywhere from 3 to 9 years. During that time, they don't have enough money to even start paying back on their debt, so that debt grows. So by the time they're out, they're financially strapped to where they've got limited choices. And so what's going to happen is the vast majority are going to become employees of a big hospital system, and they're going to have basically 3 bosses. They're going to have the patient who comes in asking for service. 2, they're going to have the insurance company that's telling them what they can and can't order. And 3, they're going to have their corporate bosses telling them, gee, you spent 10 minutes with that patient, you're really only supposed to spend 7 minutes with them. And they're the ones that are going to have the most control, because if they decide to let you go, you've signed a 2-year non-compete with them, meaning that if you're fired from that job, not only do you lose your job, you have to leave town.
Wow.
Right. Well, those non-competes aren't worth the paper they're written on, at least in California. That's been proven over and over.
Well, but the problem is, if they decide they want to push the issue with a lawsuit, you still have to defend yourself.
Right.
That's true. Very expensive.
Yeah.
So in essence, is it fair to say that with the loss of control in dealing with patients, doctors are going to be turned into mere government agents?
Oh, absolutely. Right now, most doctors will tell you what they are is high-priced box checkers on the computer. They spend more time doing their electronic medical record than they do actually taking care of patients. And it's interesting. This morning I had 2 patients in the intensive care unit that I went to go see, and I spent exactly the same amount of time dealing with the electronic medical record at the hospital as I did taking care of the patients in the ICU. Because I sat there and I said, well, I'm just curious, how much time do I spend on each? And that's what my colleagues are telling me. They're in my office, it's totally different. I have got basically kind of a real primitive electronic medical record that is sort of like the old-fashioned charts, except it's all on the computer. Mm-hmm. And I spend almost no time on charting.
Wow.
Well, that's where we are.
The question is, do you think that in 2 years, if a Republican is elected to, and I'm going to go political here, if the Republicans hold the House and the Senate and the presidency becomes Republican, do you think part of this is going to be thrown away? Or at this point, is it going to be so entrenched that it can't get rid of? And I don't know what your political leanings are. I don't know how much you get into the politics of this stuff, as probably nowhere as close as what we do being political bloggers. But what is your sense, and what do you think your fellow doctors are hoping or feeling at this point?
Well, I can only tell you what I personally believe, and at least from what I've seen of you guys, my politics are pretty similar to you guys. I'm fairly libertarian. But I think if the Republicans would have instituted Obamacare, let's say they called it Bush Care, the Democrats would be protesting, saying it's all a scheme just to funnel money to the insurance companies, because that's basically what Obamacare is.
Yep.
It's a means for government control, and the insurance companies will get a lot of money. So will the Republicans overturn Obamacare? I hope they do, but I have to admit I've gotten very cynical about the whole process. And
do tell.
So haven't we? And by the way, I mean that's exactly how Obama bought off the insurance companies, by saying we're going to funnel a bunch of money to you.
Absolutely. And like I said, if the Republicans would have done it, the Democrats would be completely all over it.
That's a pretty good scenario. I'm going to use that. Thank you.
Bush care.
All right. Well, Doctor, thank you so much for spending time with us. We've reached the end of the segment. I appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk to us here at GrokTALK.
Absolute pleasure. Be happy to do it anytime.
All right. Thank you, sir. You have a great weekend.
You too. Bye.
Hey, is it cold there?
About 70 degrees.
Oh, okay. So it's about 75 degrees warmer than here. All right, we'll see you. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, thank you so much. 70. I miss 70. You can grab a headset, and we'll wire you, and we're going to take a break in a second. And let me turn off Mike's headset so we don't have to worry about that. But you can listen to all the music and stuff. And Yvonne is in the room. We're going to talk to her in a minute about her special election in Rockingham 32. Yes, Rockingham 32. I've been saying it right. I wrote it down right. Sometimes I do this, and then they're like, oh, no, it's this district. I'm like, oh, Jesus, I did it wrong. All right.
We're going to go to the break?
Yeah.
I'm waiting to press the button.
In a couple seconds we are, yeah. I try not to bump up against the end of the segment if I can help it anymore, because I always end up, of course, this time I stopped too soon. See, now we have to kind of talk a little
ad-lib?
bit more. Yeah, ad-lib. That's the word we're looking for. Ad-lib.
As if we really have no skills in that area.
We do,
you're
but I didn't.
You're saying, stop!
I didn't warn anybody that we were going to have to.
We're making her laugh
90
already.
Seconds. So
this will be great.
She's going to have a blast here. This is GrokTALK. I'm Steve McDonald here with Skip Murphy and Mike Rogers. Yvonne Dean-Bailey's in the room. We're going to talk to her in the next segment about her race, and we will be right back.
New Hampshire is famous for scenic drives, but they're tough to enjoy when you're on your way to the doctor. Because Obamacare limits your choices, some will have to drive more than an hour to see a doctor. What's health insurance worth if care isn't there when you need it? Jean Shaheen voted for Obamacare, putting your doctors and hospitals further out of reach. Tell Senator Shaheen Obamacare is not working for New Hampshire.
Jean Shaheen and her allies are making false claims about her record on veterans. The truth? Shaheen refused to meet with veterans pushing for reform. She wasn't on the committee that wrote the reform legislation and refused to co-sponsor important VA reforms in the VA Management Accountability Act until after the VA scandal broke. When our veterans needed her, Jean Shaheen was AWOL. Tell Jean Shaheen to stop distorting the truth and fix the VA.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning. The Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Talk.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio, microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
GrokTALK.
Welcome back to GrokTALK, brought to you by GraniteGrok.com, those crazy bloggers over there with their squirrels, and of course the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers, who allows us to use the space to have the podcast. I am Steve McDonald here with Skip Murphy, Mike Rogers, and our guest, Yvonne Dean-Bailey, who is running in a special election with primary in Rockingham 32. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
And I'm going to make a stage director decision. Could you hop over one seat?
I can
because
absolutely do that for
Steve,
you.
who hates to be on camera, is blocking the view of you, and you're actually
all right.
We want you here so you could be seen and heard.
Perfect.
And we want you in front of our wonderful poster.
Yeah, I like it.
Oh, well, that's
Looks
secondary.
It is. All right, so we were talking a little bit about the race. You said you do have a primary.
I do,
and
yeah.
the date for that is?
March 31st.
March 31st is the
It's
primary.
coming up.
And when is the actual general?
So the general will be May 19th.
May 19th?
Which, I'm kind of fortunate that I do have a primary, if you look on the bright side, because it would have been that the general would have been March 31st.
Mm-hmm.
So that window there would have been ready to go.
Your turnout's going to be a lot better on May 19th because we're still going to have snow at the end of March. So.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what to do. I just got signs yesterday. I don't know what to do with them.
Yeah,
because
you stick them in the snow.
I know, but I have to climb the 10-foot snowbanks.
Oh, yeah. And then you got to keep going back out and
Exactly.
repositioning them.
Well, with snow plows, too, I just...
That's tough. It is tough.
It is.
Very few
Yeah,
places
you might want to just try with the the smaller ones, the
I
sort
do,
of size.
yeah.
Staple them to the top of long wooden stakes and bang them until they're exposed from the top of the
Home
snowbank.
Depot after this to get those, yeah.
Or to trees, or
Well,
who knows?
Staple them to trees. That's a good idea.
When you get your signs, and now we're getting into the grunt work of doing campaign, which is
Yeah.
something that doesn't actually come up very often. Most people don't understand that. Did you get the wire frames?
Yes,
So-
I did. But, I mean, are they going to rust? I don't know.
They're going to
like,
rust, but not fast enough to make a difference.
No,
Right.
no, and even if they do rust, so what? You can
true.
you may be using them for years.
Yeah.
I have old signs.
They're galvanized.
Yeah.
Some.
They last.
Some.
And
They
you
last.
need your supporters to be the same.
I have some in my shed.
Yes.
I have
Nice.
I have
Nice.
signs in my shed, metal frame signs in my shed from back when, and they're still fine.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
And you know those H sign, the H,
That's what I have.
the H stands, the
Yeah.
one that's got one crossbar or maybe two. You can actually use them upside down and hang them from something.
That's a great idea.
I've done that. I've got a couple of old Herman Cain signs in my garage which hang from the rafters. I put the H signs in the top and I curved the ends over and I hung them on something. You could hang them on a branch.
That's a great idea, actually. I never even thought of that.
Yeah.
So
Until
let's
the next
talk about.
storm comes through.
Well, we've talked about campaigning.
Yep.
Yes.
Well,
Campaigning for what?
yes.
Oh, yeah. So I'm running for the special election in Rockingham's 32nd District, which is Candia, Northwood, Deerfield, and Nottingham.
Okay.
And you're running for what?
Oh, state.
New Hampshire
That's
House.
the New Hampshire House. That's the most important part now,
Gotcha.
isn't it?
New Hampshire House. All right, and you were replacing.
Brian
hopefully,
Dobson.
Brian Dobson.
hopefully
okay.
Brian Dobson. Yes.
So he's stepped away from that role.
Yes.
And you do have a primary, and your primary opponent is Brian Stone, you said?
Yes, this
and
is
then
true.
the Democrats, Maureen Mann?
Correct.
Okay. And we talked briefly about the makeup of the district. You said it's leaning Republican?
Yeah, which I'm very thankful for. So Deerfield and Candia are actually ranked within the top 10 most conservative towns in New Hampshire. So there, we got something there. I think Candia's like +9 Republican. And
Wow.
I think, and Deerfield floats around +5. And then Northwood and Nottingham usually lean Republican, but depending on who's running and what's going on, it always fluctuates.
Okay.
And this is a special election, too, so it's really more like a town election.
Yeah.
Then those are the kinds of numbers you'd have to look at.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so you need to knock on doors and do door hangers and meet people and get turnout. Is the state party helping you at all?
Well, they can't intervene now because there's a primary, but they've helped with data and that sort of thing, and they're very nice. So yeah, hopefully. Well, yeah.
There's a reason why this camera is on and not the one that shows me right now.
After you've talked to us, maybe not.
Hey,
No, we're here to support your race for the party. So, a lot of things going on. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Yeah.
And I'm going to show a bit of ageism here because
fine.
look at the color of this, look at the color there, look at his beard. And
he's the young guy.
See, now I'm going to have to shave. You told me my beard is gray.
Yes. And I can see there's no gray there.
No,
you are
isn't.
substantially younger than the rest of us.
Yes.
You don't see that many really young people in the New Hampshire House. Why?
That's actually a good question. I think it has to do with a multitude of things. I think for some people, especially my age, I'm kind of a unique case. Number one, I am a conservative woman, which is not something that you see very often.
Oh, you've got a target on your back already. And not just with the Democrats.
No, I know. And I'm also a young conservative woman, which is something you don't see very often. And I mean, just pulling from that pool is very small. And then it takes a lot of, I don't want to pat myself on the back, but it takes a lot of guts to run.
It does.
Especially at my age too. So I think that's why we don't have that much diversity in the House when it comes to age, especially because a lot of people realize their interest in politics or like legislating later in life just because, I don't know, either it's not cool to be my age and to be very into politics. I mean, that's just the way it is, unfortunately.
Although you will notice that a lot of the Democrats that are into politics, a lot of the young folks that we run into when we're researching vote fraud, are young college graduates called from other states.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're talking about millions and millions of people, and they bring 20 or 100 of them here, and those people are into politics, and that's all they ever do. They'll never do anything else in their entire lives. They will come out of college, they will go into politics, they will run campaigns, they will do communications, they will do voter outreach, and then they'll maybe run for office, but that's all they'll ever do. They'll never have a real job.
That's true.
You have a real job?
Yeah. Do I? Yeah, I am. I'm a journalist for Campus Reform with the Leadership Institute.
Really?
Yeah.
I read that.
Oh, I'm glad. Yeah. I
Leadership
love
Institute?
It. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Positive marks all around.
We've been looking for a young female blogger, and you might be it.
Actually, I would love to do it if you're interested.
We are.
Yeah. I love doing it for Campus Reform. It's so much fun.
There's an awful lot of links from other sites that go back to Campus Reform.
Yeah.
And I will offer you on the spot, if you would like to write for Granite Grok, we shall talk.
Awesome.
Because we've got women. We've been adding women, but they're not college age. They're not, and it's as much as we read and as much as we research and as much as we talk to people, I can't be the same mindset as a 20-year-old woman or 19-year-old. It just can't happen.
No,
because
that's fair.
I don't live in that world. I don't talk to those people. I don't hang out with them. I don't know what kind of media they consume. I kind of do, but and it doesn't matter. I still can't look at it through a different set of eyes than my own. Even my daughter, who's 14, who will one day be 20 or whatever, I'm still not going to get it. Right.
No,
so I mean, I have been looking for at least a year for somebody
to
fill that role, and there you are. So
cool.
Let's talk about some issues.
Yeah,
Yes.
let's
Where you
go
want to
for it.
start?
Top 3 issues.
Top 3 issues. So number 1, I want to I want to work towards hopefully getting Common Core out of the state, or at least giving towns the realistic option whether or not they can choose it. I know, for example, Manchester is struggling with this right now, where the state and federal funding is being held over their heads, and I just don't think that that's right. I think that number 1, I don't agree with having a national curriculum, but that would probably be one of my top issues. I know that Deerfield and Northwood, which are actually 2 of the towns in my district, that's a huge issue right now, and it's on it's on both of the Warren articles. For Northwood, it's whether or not the town wants to have it whatsoever, and that was supposed to be in Deerfield, but town meetings gets watered down too.
But they're not, according to the law, they're not supposed to screw around with those warrants to where it totally obliterates the warrant. So there's something that you can go after right off the bat.
Yeah, that is something I'm really interested in doing, because the one for Deerfield was identical to the one for Northwood. It was a petition article, and it was changed to, I think the original text was something along the lines of, to see whether or not Northwood, and then for Deerfield, the town wants to have Common Core standards, and the Smarter Balance Assessment. And then in Deerfield, it was watered down to form a committee to...
Yeah, Jean Shaheen Blue Ribbon Committee to distract people so she doesn't have to take responsibility.
Yeah, that sounds like a lawsuit getting ready to happen.
Well, I thought that as well sitting there, but...
yeah.
And I think that was... Someone brought that up, and they said that, oh, no, that's okay.
Well, it's interesting because I don't know what the activist community is over there.
Yeah, it's good.
Is it good?
Kevin Burville is spearheading the whole thing.
It'd certainly be great to have you come and plug us into that, because, what we do, like Guilford, you live there. So when things go crazy with the school board, we have people in Guilford. Wyndham now, we have somebody who's on the school board in Wyndham who is in Hampton. And these towns where you get people connected, and then you find out who the activists are.
Yeah.
And then you discover that the little petty tyrannies that happen in every school district and in every town all the time, always. And you can't, we're a state-level blog. We have a lot of reach.
Yeah.
And people know that. And we have the perception of having reach. So when you take a small town and you start writing and writing and writing about petty tyrant, petty tyrant, petty tyrant, why'd you do that, what's your motivation, where's the money coming from, people start to go, oh, crap.
Yeah.
And that's that shining flashlights, the daylight that we need to have,
I agree with you. And that's why I actually write for Campus Reform and why I think it's so effective. So I usually do the writing for most of Massachusetts, New Hampshire, around here. We're not too much into Maine yet. But having people or journalists in each area, the amount of light shown on these schools is incredible.
We have always been a proponent, and we've used the terminology of big flashlights ever since we started Granite Rock, and that's really what it's at. So Common Core is one thing.
Yeah.
Next highest one.
So the next one I would probably say, and I think my top 3 issues are probably around the same level, is just, improving the business climate in New Hampshire, making sure that we can get rid of some of these burdensome regulations, some of these taxes. I know that I was on WGIR this morning, and I was talking about, talking to some of the constituents out in my district. That's probably one of the biggest things that we're talking about. And, State Senator John Reagan did an excellent job messaging this with I love his signs like tax fighter, John Reagan. And, that's something that I would like to pursue as well. And I know that a lot of people in our district now, they've been hearing all about the budget, and I've heard a lot of people that some people don't necessarily understand the legislative process, and they're like, oh my gosh, like, is that all happening? Like the 35% vehicle registration, all of that, like, I'm like, oh, thankfully it's not instant. We have people in the House and in the Senate that are going to work.
Maggie doesn't have a phone and a pen.
So. Exactly. So, that's something that I'm definitely going to work towards if I'm elected, and just hopefully reining some of that in.
Okay.
And then my third one would definitely be working to create more healthcare options in New Hampshire, and hopefully, whether that is bridging across state lines or what. But clearly, what we have is not working. I know myself, I've lost my insurance, and thankfully, I have to go through my school now, unfortunately, because
Bet you those costs have gone way up.
Oh, absolutely. It's astronomical. And the thing is, I can't, if I wanted to take Obamacare, I'm not covered outside of the state, which is a huge issue because I do travel outside for whether it be for campus reform or for other things, and I do have a lot of allergies, so I couldn't take that risk.
We told people that a lot. I mean, the minute this happened, we're like, you just lost all the hospitals in Boston.
Yeah, exactly. And I have ridiculous allergies.
Whatever you think about Massachusetts, they have world-class hospitals in Boston.
Yeah.
And you no longer have access to them. So we're going to take 60 seconds. We'll be right back, and we'll continue our interview.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
I hadn't played this one yet. Welcome back to GrokTALK. Yes, we are back. Sorry, I'm just bebopping a little bit. All right. It's my show. I can do what I want. It's his equipment, though. He could take it away from me, and I'd just be like me in Skype. And it's not the same. And I say this. I don't say this often enough. This show is successful because of the chemistry of the people who participate. I mean, no matter who we plug in here, it's usually Mike, Skip, and I, but we can bring in Jane, and we can bring in, Susan, and we can bring in you now.
And we should bring in Kimberly more often, but she's off reporting on something most of the time.
And Susan's getting ready for 223, so she couldn't be with us today. But just the idea that I listen to talk radio, and like I've said previously, only a few people can pull off a show by themselves.
Yeah.
That they're interesting and animated enough, and they can manage material in a way over a period of time that makes it engaging. What we do is very different, and I'd like to think that maybe we're having a small effect on the way talk radio occurs in New Hampshire, because this is great. I just think it's awesome. So
yes,
let's get back to you.
I just wish I had more money to get more stuff.
Well, there's a point at which you get too many people, but that's just more of an audio quality issue than a conversation issue. But the more voices we have, the better the product.
We don't even have enough headsets for the people we do bring in now.
And we don't have enough headsets for chairs. We have more chairs than headsets, so we'll work on that. And of course, Kevin was here earlier, and Kirk, and they said, guys, send us some money. We have a donate button. If everybody pitches in a little bit, we can get another headset. And that's the next goal. So please go to GrokTALK, granitegrok.com, and hit the donate button, and we'll buy a new headset.
Yes, that's what we will do next.
And then we're still working on getting rid of the ads on Ustream, because that's interferes with the experience.
Yes.
So, back to your race.
Yes.
And the issues. So, questions.
Yeah. So Common Core.
Yeah.
Healthcare.
Yep.
Business taxes.
Yep.
Those are all good and necessary type things.
Yes.
But with 1,000 bills.
Yes.
1,100, 1,200 bills a session. There's got to be more on your plate.
Absolutely.
So, are there other issues? And if you had your preferences, sometimes this is like saying things are going well. No, don't curse us. What committees would you like to be on?
That's a good question. I'm really interested in being on the education committee, just because I'm really interested in education issues. And it's just been kind of a niche. I mean, like I said, that's where I write for Campus Reform, actually, is because I do want to dive into that niche a little bit. And some other issues that I think are really important in New Hampshire. I don't know if you're looking for specific bills or just general issues.
You can just generalize.
Yeah.
There's lots of bills for every issue. So.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really interested, and I think we were talking about during the break about voter law issues. And something that drives me nuts is I think we do need to have stricter voter laws in New Hampshire. You know, I think that if you were voting in New Hampshire, you should be a New Hampshire resident. I don't think that's too much to ask.
What a
What
concept!
a concept, right? And I know for Campus Reform, we actually had an article about a professor at UNH that I believe it was during class time was driving students back and forth to the polls in a van with big Maggie Hassan stickers and Jean Shaheen stickers.
They do that all the time. Yeah, they have buses at Keene State, they have buses at UNH, and Durham, and everywhere. So.
And the thing is, how many of those kids live in Massachusetts or
they
Vermont?
don't. We have Ed Nail on a lot, obviously. CNHC, that's his bread and butter right now. Anybody with any driver's license can come into New Hampshire and vote.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, you know, what's the problem? And I'm like, well, they're voting for your representatives to spend your money.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, then they leave and they don't pay it. They don't pay the taxes. They just come and vote for you to pay them.
Yeah, I knew someone that was, and I gave him so much hell for this afterwards, but he was here on a vacation and he wanted to vote. He's from South Carolina.
Do you have his name?
I'm not going to call him out on air.
Oh no, you can give it.
He's a good Republican though, so he only helps, I guess. I don't know.
Well, we oppose it all. So
voter fraud is voter fraud.
No, I agree with you, but I gave him the grief that he deserved. Trust me.
The whole point between an absentee ballot is so you can vote.
Where you're actually registered, not just where you fancy voting today.
And there are very few states that totally screw over their populations the way New Hampshire does when it comes to voting. So.
No, I agree.
Well, back to school and education.
Yes.
Right now, the norm is government-owned, zip code-oriented, property tax-oriented type stuff.
Yeah.
We have constantly seen the idea of the tax voucher tax credits to businesses now starting to filter through in a lot of different states. It's getting its growing pains here in New Hampshire. The union-backed people are absolutely assaulting it in the court systems and all of that, but we see the private schools, the charter schools, the online schools, the home schools. You know, we're starting to see that breakdown of the top-down centralized system into a more decentralized way of looking at things. Where do you stand on that type of environment? What end of the spectrum?
I think that, every student learns differently. And I have had the pleasure of being able to attend a wide range of schools. I started off at my local public school. That's where I had, middle school, elementary school, that sort of thing. And then I went to Co-Brown, which is a semi-private school. And then I ended up at Phillips Exeter for the last 2 of my years. So I've had the full range here.
Did you get the Muslim indoctrination at Phillips Exeter?
You're
going to be careful about that because you're running for office. I get it.
Well, I've gotten that question asked a lot of times, and I will say that at Exeter, although the majority of the population is very liberal, I really think that they taught me the process in which to think rather than, you should think this way and you should vote for these people and this is what is right. But I really think that we had a unique environment in which if we had our own ideas, which I was the lone conservative, but we were able to develop them further and sort of go about it that way.
I say that, when my kids go to public school, I said they're supposed to teach you how to think, not what to think.
Yeah, exactly.
The process of thinking, the process of reason.
Right.
They don't teach that.
And that's something that I found more at Exeter at a private school than I did at a public school, because at a public school, I believe that I was much more ostracized for what I thought. I mean, my best friend and I were the two, she's more libertarian based, but we were the only two, ones.
Free market people.
Yeah, exactly. And our teachers didn't even know what to do with us. They were like, oh, jeez.
Well, in some ways it's bad because you do find yourself picked on and bullied. Although
I think it's worth it. It's 100% worth it.
Because, you are forced to sharpen your arguments.
And the one person whose mind you change is 100% worth it. You know what I mean? Like that one kid who's on the fence, and you're like, hey, like this is what I believe. Like what you're necessarily being taught most of the time isn't the end of the story.
And see, I am in favor of the plethora of choices because of exactly what you said.
Yeah.
What's being taught in our public school systems, and you just basically validated what a lot of us think.
Yeah.
They are being indoctrinated to
Absolutely.
think a certain way versus here's how you read, here's how you do the math, here's your history.
Yeah, the concrete facts that. And the thing is, a lot of kids come out of school not knowing the concrete facts that they need to.
Yeah, that's another problem.
Yeah, whether it's getting a job or so on and so forth. But, I do agree that the school children in New Hampshire need options. Not every person learns the same way. For example, online schools are great for some kids that need just either to be like a more solidarity in their learning, just whether it's going through it at home or going through it with a parent at home or so on and so forth. And then there are private schools and charter schools, and students that want to attend these schools should be able to. For example, I could not afford Phillips Exeter. I'm going to say it. I cannot.
Not many
people can.
Exactly.
I've been working for 40 years and I can't afford Phillips Exeter.
Right. And they were very, very generous in giving me 100% full tuition. And, that's not something every kid in New Hampshire should get. But I think that if you qualify to attend a school in New Hampshire, then I think you should have that option.
The money should follow the student is what I always say.
The money should follow the student. Exactly.
And a lot of the union folks or the people owned by the unions get really ticked about that because they seem to be entitled, and I'm going to ask you your opinion on what I'm about to say.
We only got about a minute, so.
Well, never mind. Let's get to the contact information.
Okay, I have your website.
Yes.
Dean-Bailey 4 NH DeanBailey 4NH.com.
Yes.
Right. Email.
Absolutely. Yvonne YVONNE Dean DEANBAILEY @gmail.com.
Okay.
Feel free to give me a call.
All right, and I know Kevin McHugh at New Hampshire Conservative Majority Project is on board with your campaign.
Oh, that's a plus.
Kevin's great.
They're going to run some folks up there and help you out? Or?
Yes, I do believe once it gets just a little bit warmer.
I'm like the...
Not happening. Not going to happen.
I have faith, You gotta have just a little... You gotta have a little bit of hope,
I'm the
right?
silent vice chair of that group. I don't participate, but I'm just there sort of so somebody else can get in and twiddle with the pages and stuff. That's about it. Same thing with the NHRBC. So.
Yep.
But this is just a new version of it. So, all right. Primary is on March 31st.
Yes.
We'll get through that first, and then we'll move on from there.
And we should support you rather than your primary opponent because you're conservative.
I am conservative. My primary opponent is a little bit more libertarian. I just think that it's the difference between us is our focus. Like I said, and we talked about earlier, like my prime focus is, education, healthcare, and definitely, taxes, jobs, and that sort of thing. And I think my primary opponent leans more towards some other issues that I just don't feel as though are the top
Not
issues.
Priorities for New Hampshire right now.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on the show. We're gonna turn off Mike's mic so he doesn't talk me into the end of the program. All right. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, great. All right. This is GrokTALK. We will be back next week with more guests. See ya.
Yeah, baby.
When asked whether she still supports Obamacare, Senator Jean Shaheen said,
Yes, I do continue to support the law. We're beginning to see some positive results.
how can Senator Shaheen say we're seeing positive results when 22,000 of our neighbors have already lost their health insurance? What's worse, the Boston Globe reports the state's only health insurance provider radically reduced the number of hospitals in their network, forcing some people to drive over an hour for lab work, even when there's a hospital within a few miles of their home. When pressed about lack of access, Shaheen said,
There are some hospitals that are not covered, unfortunately, and I certainly hope that's going to change.
Jean Shaheen promised us we could keep our doctors and our healthcare coverage. Now she hopes we can get to a local hospital? Call Senator Shaheen at 603-647-7500. Tell her we need more than hope. We need leadership. Paid for by Citizens for a Strong New Hampshire.
Senator Jean Shaheen said, if you like your current health plan, you can keep it. That's not true, Senator. 22,000 New Hampshire citizens have been kicked off their insurance plans. Hospitals in Rochester, Concord, and Portsmouth, they aren't allowed to provide care under the exchange. Senator, you were wrong in your comments. You should apologize for your misleading remarks. I'm calling Senator Shaheen at 750-3004 and telling her I want my doctor back. You should too.
Paid for by saberpac.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidate committee.
All of the music on this program comes to us through Creative Commons licensing from Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers, not necessarily those of CNHT, GrokTALK.com, or anyone else for that matter.